Our friend down yonder is thinking about it. He thinks he can get that for us. Yeah. Yeah.
I was waiting on y'all to finish talking.
I got errands.
I don't like it.
Hey, business must be done. But anyhow, I was just telling you that is it bleach? I thought it was hand sanitizer. Yeah, cover it.
Good morning. Man, it's a great fall day out there. Town was packed with people yesterday. I didn't know any of them. I had to go up there twice. I was thinking when I was studying on this last night, if every one of those folks that weren't from here could hear what we're presented in our lesson today, it may not be a great presentation of the lesson, but this one is as cool as anything that I think I've had the privilege of getting up here and reviewing. I mean, this one's what it's all about at the end of the day, and it gives us great hope, and I think it literally ties in with everything that Lonnie's been working on, as well as anything that we've had, and it's also going to tie in really tight with our fall revival. I tried to almost step on a limb, and there's a few of these pieces of this lesson today that'll take you over to Revelations, and I stayed out of there, so I figured I'd get in over my head. But this is called the greatest return, and we had the greatest commandment last time. By all means, I don't think there's anything in any text of any document of any book that has ever been written in the history of the world that you could consider the greatest return. I mean, I think the author of our book in our quarterly is just, I mean, they hit it spot on. We're over in Thessalonians, and Paul's writing again here, another letter. I think we've been in letters for a while, Mike, but that's a good thing. Give you a quick background. Our book covers most of it. I found a couple little things we didn't have, but somewhere in the 49 to 51 AD range, Paul, they found this church. It's really weird if you look at the pronunciation, because if you go to the modern city, it's Thessaloniki. So I'm glad they called it Thessalonia. It's a little easier to say. A little bit of background on this. Some of these people had quit work. And I'd listened to a couple sermons on this in preparation, and I think that's a key piece to this. There's a really good outline of kind of what Paul was, writing to accomplish in this letter. But some of these people have literally quit work, looking for the second coming. I mean, Paul, and we'll see when we get into it, he's already discussed a lot of what we're going to talk about with these folks. I thought it was kind of amazing, Lonnie, and I don't know if you've heard this part or you can fact check. They said they felt like that he founded this church in a matter of weeks. So that's powerful in itself. I mean, you know about founding a church that's a good church and a church that obeys in a matter of weeks. So they paid pretty good attention. So I think this letter has a different tone to it than some of his other letters. But I found a really quick outline. And I won't put Ty on the spot because I know he probably doesn't know the answer, and it's not his fault. It's the education system. But when when these folks wrote letters, there's a process to writing a formal letter, and it's not ChatGPT. It's you think about a letter before you write it, and you come up with an outline. And Ty, you any idea what the start of the letter is called? There's a formal word that starts with an S. You got a little help with the salutation, right? So, and again, the reason I put him on the spot, and he doesn't mind, is that they don't teach letter writing. I mean, and honestly, it's even getting worse because you can throw it in ChatGPT. You can throw your thoughts in there and it'll write it right up for you. But
if somebody got a letter, they wouldn't know what to do.
And if they got one in the mail, they think it's a bill. That's right. And they can write it in cursive, and
Well, if it's in cursive, they can't read it.
That's exactly right. But there's a quick outline I want to go over with y'all on the letter, and then we'll get into the meat of the lesson. But I think this is really important because I'm going to break this into two parts. And the reason I want to break the lesson into two parts this morning, not that it's unrelated and not that I felt like the book, it just kept on my heart last night. I just kept getting into the second part. And when you research this and you listen to a lot of different preachers and reverends and all kinds of people that teach this, that most of their sermons are either on the first part of this, which is the last chapter 4, or they preach on chapter 5. And it is kind of neat that our book combined them. I mean, they do run concurrent. But one thing about a letter is a letter has sections. And so, although Paul may not have literally written the letter into chapters, you break a letter down kind of by the context or by the way, the point you're trying to get across. And you make a valid point in a professional letter to move from subject to subject in a way that's concise and ties together. But you do change your thoughts throughout the letter. My phone dropped the outline. But you start with a salutation and thanksgiving, in his case, on this one. In Thessalonians 2, he mainly focuses on the past interactions he'd had with the church. In 3, he's talking about Timothy's visit. In 4, which we're going to end with, the first part of 4 is the relationships among Christians. The kind of second part through the end is kind of the mourning of those who have died and how they're to handle that, and the promise that we get with this great return. And then 5 is kind of preparing and praying for God's arrival, and the end of 5 is kind of how we should behave. So that's kind of the breakdown, and then a closing. Ty, what they call the entrance? It's the same thing at the end. What'd you just say? It's a salutation. So as we get into this, we'll just start with 4:16 through 18. And like I said, I won't break today's lesson down without watching the clock, but kind of into two parts. For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel and the trump of God, and the dead in Christ shall rise. Then we, which are alive and remain, shall be caught up together with them in the clouds, to meet the Lord in the air, and so we ever be with we ever be with the Lord. Wherefore, comfort one another with these words. I always say this, but Lonnie could preach an entire sermon and never leave these two verses. There were sermons that I found that were an hour and a half long on these two verses. So there's no way we're going to cover every little nuance today in class, but there are some very, very key points. One that I picked up on that our quarterly doesn't address 100% is at 17, when Paul says, then we, which are alive. Not you or those or any, he said we. And it's real important that he said we, because that includes him. And there's a lot of study out there that's actually anticipation in his heart. And I think that's key. I mean, he's not telling this 100% prophetic. I mean, he's anticipating it too. And again, from everything I could find, I think Paul feels like, and the theologians feel like, these folks were thinking any day in their time. Not thinking we would be 2,000 years later, and this time had not come yet. Another part is, and basically, what is the rapture is to be caught up in them in the cloud. Our book goes over that rapture comes from the Latin vulgate, which is rapturo, gives us just a little things that little quick facts we can have. But what I thought was really neat is we've sung so many hymns, and I've heard so many hymns, and I've been guilty of reading when you're not studying for a lesson. We all talk about, a lot of hymns say called up in the air. But this makes a point to say caught up in the air. And part of that caught up in the air that we find here is because the dead in Christ will rise first. So, I had a preacher, though, he explained it very well, that, you know, no matter what state of decay or anything that your body's in, whether you've been cremated or you were lost at sea or you were down in the deepest gorge or the bottom of the Marianas Trench or whatever, wherever your remains are going to be, though you're going to get that new body. I mean, and you're going to come up and you're going to meet. And that's going to be, you're going to be raptured up. And then when we are caught up, those that are still alive are technically the second tier of this process. The thing that sticks out the most to me about this, and I don't know that we got as much out of our lesson in this, but it just kept talking to me last night and this morning, like early AMs, the Lord himself. Like the thing I got out of this, we've got this great promise, we've got this great return, but the Lord himself is the one that's going to descend from heaven and announce the shout. One guy that I heard speak last night mentioned that shout may very much be like when he raised Lazarus. We don't know exactly what that shout is, but we know it's the most powerful shout that's ever going to happen since the foundation of the world. And I think it's very, very key that we know that the Lord himself is going to do this. Now, accompanying with the archangel, and in Daniel 1, that's probably Michael. I mean, it doesn't ever 100% say, but based on what Daniel says in his prophecy, it's probably Michael. But what's really cool is the Lord came himself, and we talked last week about that separation that we got with Adam and Eve, and we talked about humans separated themselves from God, and God himself had to fix it. God himself is coming home, guys, to get the church. He isn't sending somebody else. He's not going to send an army of angels or anybody else. He is coming, and that's why this is the greatest return ever. It's him, right? He's been sitting at the right hand of the throne, and he is going to step out on those clouds, as he promised. One other part about this, and I want to get you guys involved before we leave this particular set of verses. But one other thing that really spoke to me with this is, you know, again, in the promise, we will ever be with the Lord, and we're to comfort each other with these words. So this is one lesson I was telling Daniel on the way. I was like, man, it's everything that I've got to get up here and speak about has been all over my toes, like all over mine, and I hope I haven't been on anybody else's too much, but this is like, it's hard to get on anybody's toes about this particular thing. This is our hope. This is our promise. This is what will happen. I mean, this is the gospel. I mean, we like to stand and talk about the gospel, but the gospel is the truth. This is what will happen, without a doubt. And as I said before, the devil knows this is what's going to happen. The Christians know this is what's going to happen. Anybody that's ever read knows what is going to happen. Here's the only thing, and I'm going to get on my toes and a little bit on everybody else's, is as long as you know Jesus Christ as your personal Savior. And in all honesty, Lonnie, when he steps on them clouds, it's too late for everybody else. I mean, it would be kind of awesome to think that there's some people alive that like, oh, didn't believe, and they look up and it's happening. But it's too late. I mean, that's literally the point of no return, guys. When he steps out, that's it. You're in, you're out, you're out. I mean, it's over with. If you were in when you died, you're in. If you were out when you died, you're out. And that's I mean, it's black and white. I mean, we want to hear all the positives, and it is a great and positive thing. But again, as he closes this, he says, comfort one another with these words. I still think that means tell everybody the good news, right? Tell them what's going to happen, because you only get the good news if you're in the club. One thing that the book asks, and I'm going to give you the quick recap straight out of the book so I don't shortchange these verses. Again, the Lord himself descends. There is a commanding shout. There is a trumpet call. The dead in Christ are raised. And then those living meet him in the air. Is there anything, I mean, besides the actual contextual text, that sounds like a weird English, but Carlotta, what gives you peace in this?
Gives me peace that I know the Lord's coming again. And I know that my salvation is there, and I know when he calls, I will answer. We know the shepherd's voice.
And we'll know it. I mean, without a doubt. And the reason I picked on Carlotta is her answer. I mean, she bailed me out so big because we could have went down such a rabbit hole, and the Lord didn't let her leave me hanging up here. Her answer when I asked if you weren't here, I asked if you could ask Jesus one question. What would you ask? And I was trying to get us running down a course of, you know, silliness and seriousness. And, you know, her question was, how beautiful is it? And I tried to remind everybody the reason she could ask that question is she had no doubt in her faith. She knows she's in. She has that comfort. She has that peace. She didn't have to ask, am I in? Or do I need to do something different? Right? So this gives us comfort and peace. One other quick thing that I thought was really neat. And I don't know if y'all read the stats, but the stats are kind of boggling over here. Back on our page where we're getting started, it said when they wrote this, 39% of adults that were surveyed said they felt like they were living, or we are in the end times. 58% said they don't believe we are. 29% of the non-Christians. Now this is the one that got me. 29% of non-Christians believe we're in the last days. How in the heck do you believe you're in the last days, and that those days are numbered, and you're a non-Christian? Blows my mind. I mean, what level of arrogance or blinders or everything we've talked about can you have? And how could you go to bed at night and not believe?
That's the 29% that have heard, but they choose not to believe, but yet they still believe, or they wouldn't say that.
That's exactly right. They don't know God. They believe. How could you believe this beautiful book to the point end times is end times. if something came from nothing, which it can't, and if something, we were created and we were ooze or monkeys or whatever you want to do, if all that stuff, if time started, something created it, and if time ended, something ended it. So how can you not believe in something?
Well, what gets me is the atheist doesn't believe in God, but he tricked them altogether, because when you breathe the name of God, Yahweh.
Yep, that's exactly right.
You breathe it the first breath and you breathe it the last breath.
Every day. That's a literal, and I know you said y'all working on the study of the names of God, but our breath itself, look that up. You could talk for hours on that. When we breathe, the sound we make, and I think everybody heard a lot, is the name of the Lord in a sound. And then 67% of believers who attend religious services or weekly and pray daily do believe that we're in the last days. Now, on those last days, and I really do think that's why this author, I know I do that all the time, but I do like to separate the authors. This author, I think that's one reason they tied this together. Because we have this great promise, and we've got a percentage of people that don't believe we're in the end times. And I'll give them some credit. Honestly, at World War II, when we dropped those bombs, some people were here. Those folks that fought, that's pretty close to, you got to be thinking, my gosh, if we've got this level of destruction, are we not in the last days? The Jews themselves that were part of the tragedy and the just awfulness of the whole situation with Germany, how could those folks not think, this is the end of everything? People that have been persecuted, again, these Christians back then thought they were in the last days. They've seen persecution. They've seen people die for preaching and teaching. So, again, I think it's really neat to remember that in the 40s AD, people thought it was the end of times. We're at 2025. But at some point, guys, this stuff is going to come to an end. I made a little bit of, and I don't like to get into the Facebook stuff, but, nobody should have made fun of people that were calling last couple weeks Rapture Day. At least those folks were thinking, and at least those folks were believers. But the funny part is, if they read their text, there's no way that it can be. The minute that any public, one person may stand up and be the one guy that wins the $10 billion lottery and is like, Jesus is coming on February 12th, 2027. Somebody may hit that. But once a movement starts around it, that's the very proof that it's not going to happen, because no man knoweth the hour, and we're getting ready to go into that. So I think that's one reason that this author ties our text together. But we're going to move over to Thessalonians 5, 1 through 3.
One of the scary things is that 58%.
That 58% is really scary.
Yeah.
That's really scary. But of the times and the seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write to you. I'm going to break this one down a little bit as we go. The reason he says that there's really no need that I write to you, he's actually reinforcing these people, they've had this discussion. He's taught them this already. The church knows about this. They already know the process. But I think it is critical that we understand that he's already founded this church based on this. It's not that this is new news to them in this letter. And then for yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh on them, and travail upon a woman with a child, they shall not escape. So there's some really good pieces here, and again, Lonnie could go for days. But first of all, I want to start my part of this with the day of the Lord. And in a minute, when we finish going through these couple verses, I want to kind of show y'all just to have a little bonus coverage of the day of the Lord and how much the day of the Lord is discussed throughout the Bible. But let's break down this particular couple of 3 verses. Peace and safety. All right, peace and safety. There's 2 ways to look at this theologically. One is a false sense of security within their heart, right? I mean, truly, peace and safety, I'm at no danger. I don't have that 6th sense in my mind. Everything's going great for me. I'm good. I'm good, preacher. I mean, I know who Jesus is. But do I really know him in my heart? And then a literal, Lonnie, peace and safety as you get into this stuff later. And that's what almost drug me over to Revelations, and I just stayed way away from it. But peace and safety, I mean, a trickster, a false prophet, a organized religion, a one-world religion, and everybody gets along harmoniously. There's 2 pieces to this. There's a metaphor, and then there's a reality of the end of times. That the prophets have said, everything's going to be great and hunky-dory, and this great group of people is going to get together, and they're going to have this false sense of peace and safety. So he's mentioning this all the way back when he's writing this letter. The thief in the night, again, you could cover forever, but, if I'm going to go rob Bobby, I'm going to try to catch him in his bed. I don't want to get shot, I just want to go get his stuff. So I'm going to sneak in. I'm not going to tell him I'm coming, obviously. So again, he's going to come as a thief in the night. And I'm going to try to get in and out as quickly as possible if I'm going to try to take his stuff.
Kris, that thief can also mean Satan. And that thief can steal your soul.
He can, and it's a theft. He can try. Apple said he can try.
Well, he's after the Christian. He will try his best with a Christian to steal their soul.
And then we go to the last part, and here's what was interesting. The one guy ended up listening to his entire sermon. I just couldn't turn it off, and it went into the early a.m.s, like 2 a.m. But this guy was preaching a sermon at a little bit newer type church, but they were King James Version. I didn't even bother to look at his denomination because he was preaching the word. You can tell if somebody's preaching the word. I don't have to watch a sermon that's 100% Southern Baptist. I mean, to get something out of it. And so this guy introduced the sermon when he was talking about Thessalonians. He said, my wife's getting ready to go into labor any minute. But God said, go preach this morning. And they had a backup pastor with a different message. And he said, if this isn't what Jesus wants y'all to hear this morning, she's going to go into labor. I go out the back door and you get to hear something completely different. But where he tied this together was he was personally accompanying his wife, and no men should take any credit for a pregnant woman because I definitely didn't, and what they go through and the pain. But it's a really good analogy here. It's imminent. That thing's in the oven. It will come out. There will be pain associated with it. There will be labor, literal labor associated with this. And he said, they shall not escape. So, 1, he's going to come to the thief in the night. 2, it's just like the burden of a woman with a child. You're not going to escape the pain. You're not going. It's going to happen. He's just reinforcing how it's going to happen and that it will happen. I mean, it's imminent. There's no way out. I'm going to ask you a question before we go any farther. Why do, and there's a lot of good answers, and they're all going to be right, but why doesn't God give us the hour? I mean, I've never thought about that. I mean, you take for granted that God doesn't give us the day or the hour of the second coming.
Well, it's just like the Jewish wedding ritual. You prepare your place first. It's always prepared first. The father tells the son how to build it, what to prepare, what to do, before he ever tells him to go get your bride.
Correct. What's human nature?
hurry up and go ahead and get it done.
Right, right. That Lonnie hit the nail on the head, kind of where I'm going, with where I'm going. God, that's a great answer. He has to prepare the place. I mean, there's a million right answers, and the one that I'm going down the path is not the answer. But what hit me, as I tell y'all, like square between my eyes on this big old noggin, was we like to cram. Ty, how many tests you study for the night before? Jamie, how many grants go in 5 minutes before they're due? I mean, not intentionally, but our workloads are heavy. Jamie writes grants for the school system. I mean, a lot of times it's like, honey, I ain't gonna be home till 7 because the computer cuts off at 7:01 and this grant's gotta go in, and I've been busy taking care of kids all day and other problems.
The altar would be full the day before.
It would be. If he truly told us, can you imagine if, I don't even know what day I said, well, I'll just use Valentine's. If it's Valentine's Day 2028, and from all the text and all of the math, we truly knew that was the day. What do you think it would look like 2 weeks ahead of that day?
It'd be nothing but panic.
And then what would it look like the night before that day? Every church house in America would be busting at the seams. And I think part of this is very, very intentional, because what really got me last night is any night that you go out and whatever you're going to participate in, if it's bowling or fishing or a concert or whatever, if we truly thought Jesus was coming back 2 or 3 hours from whatever event we were caught up in, don't you think our actions as a whole would change? I mean, Daddy's watching, right? I mean, if Jamie and I are in Las Vegas at the National Finals Rodeo, I mean, we got FaceTime and we don't put a bunch of cameras on our house and we trust our kids. But what happens when Mom and Dad show up a day early, right?
Busted.
And it's because it's human nature. It's not because kids are bad. It's because it's human nature. But if they know we're going to be home we're going to hit Charlotte Airport Sunday night at 8 p.m., they know it takes that process and 2 hours to drive home. They know the day and the hour pretty much when we're going to be home. But their actions are most likely going to change if we call and say, hey guys, we're coming home Saturday, not Sunday.
They know the requirements of the parents, and they want to get closer to what the requirements are for when to get there. We know what Jesus requires of us, so if we knew the time, we would want to be prepared for that.
Yeah, and those that are devout, we probably would stop work. I mean, we would probably
Be more forgiving.
be a lot more forgiving. We'd probably be going to get our affairs in order. We would be like someone that received a diagnosis that truly had a potential date associated with it. So I think there's a lot of reasons he doesn't give us the day or hour, but I think what I took away from it from the lesson today was just we should act like every time we go to bed that he could come as a thief in the night, and that at early a.m., I like to think it'd be a.m. with a beautiful sunrise and all that. It may not be. And it won't be sunrise in part of the world, I mean, because part of the world's dark. But regardless, we should live our lives on a daily basis to where our conscience is clear when we go to bed. I mean, Jamie and I have squabbled in all the years that we've been married, and we've fussed and said stuff and hollered, and I have thrown things, and, you know, stuff like that happens. But very few nights have we ever went to bed mad. It may be 5 a.m. the next morning before we get it reconciled out. But very few nights in our marriage have we ever went to bed mad. My mom and dad, I honestly think if Mom were here today, she could tell you there was not one. I know she's told me that one night, not one night, did they actually ever go to bed mad. There wasn't one night that somebody left and went and stayed all night at their mama's. They reconciled it that night. And we have that opportunity every day for any sin we've caused, created, been a part of, to reconcile that with God every night, every day. And I think we literally should do that. I mean, I don't think it will keep you out, you're in, but if I know I'm going to meet him in the morning, I'm going to try to take a shower, clean up, do as good as I can for the last few minutes.
I'm wondering if he doesn't let us know is simply because of fear. Because Scripture tells us to fear not.
Yep. And it would be a burden. That's another very good point you could run is, you know, how big of a burden would it be if you were working with Joe Smith and you were trying to plant that seed we talk about? By the way, that seed preacher was on this morning is $1,000 this morning, Mike, but she's going to get tenfold if you give it to her. But he was on there this morning. I went to sleep watching, what was it, in the heat of the night, and about 3 o'clock this morning, the seed was 1,000. And you were going to get it back tenfold. And if you needed to put it on your credit card, don't worry about the credit card debt because it'll take care of itself. But anyway, back to the subject. There would be great panic. I mean, if I'm working with Joe Smith and tomorrow's it, I mean, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I mean, if my affairs are in order, I may be worried about my kinfolk or my kid or my spouse or my uncle or my nephew. Really good point. I mean, there's hundreds of reasons, I'm sure, why he doesn't tell us. As we go to 5:4-8, but you brethren are not in darkness, that day should overtake you as a thief. So he's speaking to these brethren, these Christians. You know, you're not in darkness. As we go through this, I really do like the metaphor that there's nothing good that's happening after 1 a.m. I mean, even with our kids, I mean, we let them come in past that sometimes, but, a lot of bad things happen in darkness. There's a really good metaphor here, and it even ties into this next part. But ye are children of the light and children of the day. We are not of the night, nor of darkness. Therefore, let us not sleep as do others, but let us watch and be sober. I mean, there's a literal thing there too. Where does most people, when they get drinking and out of sorts and partying and all that stuff? I mean, these folks knew what sober meant. I mean, they drunk back in the biblical times. When does it normally happen? At night. But for they that sleep in the night, and they that be drunken are drunken in the night. But let us who are of the day be sober, putting on the breastplate of faith and love, and for an helmet and hope of salvation. In a minute, you all know I can't help it, but we're going to read 9-11 because I think they stopped 3 verses too short. But let's break this one down really quick. Let us watch and be sober. Let us be of clear heart, clear mind. Let us not be drugged down in that bottle that Jamie had. I mean, that thing's going to come up a million more times. But, let us be, we can live in the world without being of the world. Let us be sober. Let us have our own sight. Let us have the eye on the prize. A lot of these sports coaches, keep your eye on the prize, guys. Well, we need to keep our eye on the prize. Our prize is the greatest prize that's ever been put out there. And let us not be of the night. Let us not be of the darkness. There's a very good analogy here. It still goes back to the thief coming in quick. The thief himself stealing souls, stealing, faith, stealing good works, anything that you want to go into. But let us be able to go to sleep at night. And again, that's why that other piece hit me so hard. Let us have a good, clean conscience. Let us clear our iniquities up for the day before we go to bed. And then let us clear them again in the morning, probably for what we dreamed that night. But let us be that awareness. And I do like the whole fact that, and I can't remember if it was in this book or somebody else I heard, but they bring up the helmet and the breastplate. And how many times in the Bible do we go to war? How many times in the Bible do the kings of old go to war in the name of Jesus Christ? How many times do the disciples and the apostles and the followers and the scripts How many times do they go to war against what is wrong? What is worldly? I mean, we are in a spiritual battle. It may have been in here, but we are in a spiritual battle. I think the analogy of bringing in the breastplate and the helmet is that if you've got that peace and you've got that armament from God, it helps you to have that comfort, have that sleep, be of the light. You're not drugged down. You're not in fear. You know, you're protected. You're wrapping yourself in that. And again, there's still a battle to be fought. I mean, you know, there's still a battle, and we know who wins, right? But I did like the spiritual warfare. And then, again, God is light. And that's straight out of our book. So there's so many references in the Bible to light and darkness. And generally, light is good and darkness is bad. And I'm not saying you can't be an astronomer and enjoy the stars and enjoy the constellations. And some of y'all may have your greatest peace at 2 a.m. I mean, it may be neater for you to see the moon and shooting stars than for you to see a sunrise. And the sunset may be the greatest time of your day. So don't treat it like I treat fall. I like fall. It's a short season. I like the leaves turning, but we're farmers at heart. I know what's coming. Ryan knows what's coming. It's when those leaves start falling, the people that just don't have to go out and feed cattle in a foot of snow, and then the wind and the cold and the limbs and the power outages. But it is a beautiful season, and it doesn't say here you can't enjoy light and dark, but don't be of darkness. Don't live there. Don't keep your spirit blocked down there. I'm going to take y'all 3 weird places, and one just because I think it's funny and I may never get to read out of it again. But I'm going to go back to the day of the Lord. The day of the Lord is roughly, because there's some contradiction there, there's like 8 authors throughout the Old Testament that talk about, in the Bible, the day of the Lord. And if there was ever a day of the Lord, this second coming is the day of the Lord. There's 19 times, maybe 20, depends on wording a little bit, that it's in the Old Testament that's mentioned as the day of the Lord. There's like 5 or 6 that it's truly scripted as the day of the Lord in the New Testament. So I was listening to this preacher, and he was going and comparing them. And the coolest one that we get to go to is in Zephaniah. Nobody gets to go to Zephaniah. It's 3 chapters. It's like 5 pages. And actually, it's kind of a dark book. Zephaniah as a whole is kind of, it's a lot of warnings and not a whole lot of, it's more stick than carrot. Y'all heard me talk about the carrot and the stick. But in Zephaniah 1, 14 and 15, he says, the great day of the Lord is near. It is near, and hasteth greatly, even the voice of the day of the Lord. The mighty man shall cry there bitterly. That day is a day of wrath, a day of trouble and distress, a day of wasteness and desolation, a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness. And I ain't going to go one more. A day of the trumpet and the alarm against the fenced cities and against the high towers. I mean, he's got the trumpet in there. He's got the day of the Lord in there. And I'm prefacing, it's a dark book. I don't mean that bad, but it is a dark book. He's focusing on the people that don't know. What I just read out of there, that's what's happening to the other side on the day of the Lord. And then just because it's close to Zephaniah, and it's easy to get to, in Matthew 24, we go over to and I lose my place sometimes, guys, because I don't write my Bible. I mean, you write yours, you love to, that's great, it don't bother me, but I just don't write mine. But in my study Bible, when you start with verse 36, it actually above it says, no man knoweth the day. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. That's kind of cool too. You could go a long ways with that. But he sat at his right hand of the throne. Who's to say that God just goes, today's the day, son? Right? I mean, it says my Father only. There's a Trinity here. 40 days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered in the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them all away, shall be the coming of the Son of Man shall be. Back to that question, why we don't know the day or the hour. Would you intentionally be trying to have a child? Would you be married? You would be marrying the Lord, but would you be married for the people that aren't able to help themselves? They are able to help themselves. Maybe I should rephrase it, for the people that aren't willing to help themselves. And then, one more time, we're going to go to 2 Peter, verse 10. But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night. We heard that somewhere before. In which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise. You heard that somewhere before? Shout, trumpet. And the elements shall melt with the fervent heat, and the earth also, and the works that are therein shall be burned up. So Peter's even got a little good in there and a little heat in there, right? I mean, he's got the carrot and the stick. But this day of the Lord is in multiple more places. And then to kind of close, and then we'll wrap with y'all's comments, I do think the author stopped, and I don't know if it's the Lord telling me or Kris telling me, but one or the other, I hope it's the Lord. I think they stopped 3 verses short. Because right after we talk about the helmet and the hope of salvation, when we go to verse 9, for God hath not appointed us to wrath, but to obtain salvation by our Lord Jesus Christ, who died for us, that whether we wake or sleep, we heard that before? We're dead or alive, we wake or sleep, we should live together with Him. Wherefore, comfort yourselves together and edify one another, even as also you did. So, the reason I think he stops just a little bit short, and I say he or she, whoever, is that last part is why this day is important for us. It's because it's for those that have the salvation in Jesus Christ. And if you stop and just say, put on your helmet and your armor, it's so important that they say, comfort thyselves together. Christians come together, work together, share the word, and edify one another, teach, preach, pray. That's how we get here. So I think it's super important that we understand, and I think maybe they stop short because, hey, if you come to Sunday school, you know, you read your lesson, it's to help you help somebody else. But, I mean, there could be somebody sitting in the Sunday school class that doesn't have that 100% guarantee of salvation. As they end this, and then I'm going to ask y'all a quick question. In the part that says live it out, they say be alert, be self-controlled, and warn others. I mean, that's kind of the summary of our lesson from the author. That same preacher, his wife didn't go into labor, by the way, and he finished the sermon. He literally almost quotes our book, and he says, if I'm ready for the day of the Lord, be aware, be different, that bottle keeps coming up, be comforting, warn others, and then he closed it with, tell somebody else about the day of the coming of the Lord. So, one step farther, I think, again, today's lesson gives us a lot of peace and comfort. It will truly be, without a doubt, the greatest return, the most triumphant victory that will ever be written. Because at this point, he gives us victory over death, hell, and the grave. I mean, he's given us that victory when he sacrificed himself. But this is storming the field. I think Colorado got fined $50,000 for their students storming the field. I'll pay whatever amount. This is storming the clouds. This is it. This is the celebration. And then it's our peace forevermore.
Well, if we don't go out there and tell somebody about Jesus Christ, how they gonna know? They won't know.
They won't know.
Well, I tell everybody I see.
And I think that's our job. Lonnie, anything else out of there?
Chris, I'm thinking that something Michael Lopola always says, and we say, oh, see you later. He said, unless the church rises, then I'll see you sooner.
That's pretty cool.
He always says that anytime.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, Granny used to say, if the good Lord tarries, he's coming one more day. I've heard a lot of those old timers say, if the good Lord tarries, he's coming one more day. So, if the good Lord tarries, he's coming 7 more days, I'll see y'all next week.
You could look at it kind of like Noah's Ark. Look how many years Noah preached, kind of warned people. Nobody listened.
And he just kept building that, I thought the union speaker, touched on that a little bit, and he's right. Like, all them people was like, you're crazy, man. I mean, you're just crazy, man. And I think any of them that probably would have listened could have probably got on the boat. Right? I mean, yeah. Next week.
But when they closed the door, that was it.
And when he steps on that cloud, the train's full. I mean,